We have another Nick Cage movie out.
Yeah, and so for those of you that thought like A Quiet Place was great, but I want a little bit less tension.
Yeah, a little more loud. Let's talk about Arcadian.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hey, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. For our loyal fans, sincerely, thank you for continuing to support the show. Another way you can support the show, join our Patreon. We have some great deals, great opportunities to tell us what movies we can review for future episodes. You pick them. And, of course, a shout-out to you as well. Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critic reviews as well as ours. And, of course, we're talking about another Nick Cage film. It's Arcadian.
So life as we know it has come to an end, and a father with two teenage sons is trying to survive this new landscape, avoiding creatures that hunt them, but only at night.
Okay, so this is directed by,
Benjamin Brewer, who did The Trust with Nick Cage, was his directorial debut. So they worked together.
And also kind of worked on the special effects department of Everything Everywhere All at Once. In an interview that I read, he's not a big special effects fan, but knows when it's needed. This has a cast that you're kind of familiar with. I talked about that one of the teenage boys is from the movie It, and I was like, that's It.
Yeah, Jaden Martell, who looks a little bit different. He hasn't. I don't think he's worked in the past like 2 years or so and shot up there in height. So.
And then he has his twin brother, who is actually supposed to be this smart person.
Yeah. Played by Maxwell Jenkins, who you might remember from the movie Pop Star. It's a very small role that he's in, but he hasn't had a lot of credits to his name. So.
Right. So when you have a dystopian based on some kind of invasion or an infection, something very like a zombies, you have to of course, incorporate protocols. And this is kind of, I don't call these dystopian movies. This is more called where the protocol failed and where do you ignore it, and that's where everything goes to crap. So I call this kind of the protocol genre kind of films. I don't know what you want to add on to that.
I almost feel like it's like this argument that like dual parenting is really helpful, because clearly when John Krasinski has Emily Blunt out there to help him keep his kids safe, things go a little bit less terrible. But this movie is apparently Nick Cage not being too trusting of a father. I think he lets his kids go out in the murder zone.
Right. So when you have to pay attention to the protocols, it's everything. There's a monster who doesn't like the light. So it's very familiar territory, I would say. So much so that kind of turned me off a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little bit too close to the vest, including even just how the film ends is very much like, oh, you're doing that? Damn. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if this was written. I mean, this couldn't have been written before Quiet Place. I mean, that was 2017. This feels way too close to that movie.
To have any other originality to it. And like I said, when you do dystopians, you have the interesting is how you maintain survival and try to live normal outside of things, almost trying to kill you from which you can't really see.
Yeah, and it starts off with some interesting interactions with this father and his kids. I like that, because the thing in even like A Quiet Place is that the film does feature, like, these are kids that are growing up in a world that's confusing to them, and they're going to make mistakes, and that's the important thing, is like that you are still training them, that you are still teaching them what not to do. In A Quiet Place, the kids make mistakes frequently. But the point is that they learn from them, and they have a parent that's willing to like get out there and do things.
Yeah, you have to learn how to do sign language or your own family code of interaction without conversations. Yeah.
But you have Thomas's character who goes over and hangs out at this cute girl's like settlement with her family and
the
stuff.
Rose Farm,
Which again I feel like is not really well developed. But he makes a mistake. He goes out when he wasn't supposed to. He goes to places he's not supposed to, and then he gets stuck in this area that he can't get out by himself. Yeah. Interesting idea, because it's a mistake I can understand you making. But
very childlike mistake, right? Very childlike mistake, but obviously that's a path that you cross all the time once you put a backup plan to it.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Well,
we're thinking too sensible. I understand that's the crutch of it, that you make mistakes and not following protocols, and you need to go outside of it.
Yeah, but part of me is that it feels like these kids, I mean, it's been 15 years since this started. We see the opening of this like invasion or whatever's happening. These kids have never grown up in a world without them.
Yeah.
And they act a little bit too much like kids from our world that have not figured out this world yet.
The first movie that popped in my brain was the movie Dogtooth.
Okay.
Where that's
interesting,
but it's very ecosystem of the dominant patriarch, who's also very abusive.
Okay.
But they also come with their own interactions of how they engage themselves
Yep.
through their own little echo chamber life, even though it's very abusive. Put that mixture of this is how our family interacts without any social culture
Yeah.
playing a part. Yeah.
That makes that actually a really interesting poll that you had there, because that makes a lot of sense when you look at it that way, and kind of that's where I think the film kind of loses me. And some of the mistakes that the kids make, like, so Joseph is incredibly smart. He's concocting all these traps and things, and when he's left by himself, he has this trap he builds that like collapses on one of the creatures and catches him. And then you have Thomas that's like, oh, let's open it up. Why? Joseph says we can study it. I don't know what they're going to actually learn from it. They're kind of young and they don't seem like they have a lot of tools, but like that's much better than let's just open it. And Thomas is such a frustrating character then, because I want to like him, but he's written as incredibly dumb.
Right. You almost want to take a 2x4 and boom.
You want to hit him after you hit the creature.
Right.
You know?
So there's also, when you do dystopian protocol genre films, there has to be a level of stupidity involved, where you have to balance it out. You can't be completely dumb.
Yeah, the
or you're
zombies
dead.
always win. Like that's the whole thing, is the zombies are going to win.
I do love the third act, which is very interesting how the monsters attack him. I do. That's very creative.
I'm confused by it. I wish we had gotten more of the physiology, because that's, again, going back to the Quiet Place. I feel like I understand the creatures. Yeah. This one, I was doing like the weird like snap, snap, snap thing that I'm interested in.
Yeah. This is interesting. When I talked about we had too much Nick Cage for me in Longlegs. I think we didn't have enough Nick Cage for this movie. I think we'd have to have kind of like a ranger, almost like, rather than doing the parental. We are concentrating so much of his parental. I would like to see a little more survival kind of a Nick Cage.
Have him leading and they're following. And you can tell it probably was a case where this movie was inexpensive and they wanted to get Nick Cage for as much time as they could afford.
Yeah.
I
but
think...
I would like to see him go like he did in Mandy after these guys. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like his role could have been played by anyone else. And I feel like that's never something you want to hear about a Nick Cage role. It's just like there's nothing for him to do in the movie.
Especially that scene where... it's very creepy. Of all the monsters together, they look like a row of dogs.
Yeah.
And they're all just chomping at the bits.
They reminded me of the creatures from Attack the Block, where they're like always seen in shadow, in darkness, but you can see the outline that's kind of creepy. I feel like your central criticism of kind of like the back half of Longlegs being that it was like not well developed enough of an ending. I think that's the case I have with this one more. Yeah. Is I feel like I don't understand the creatures. They do this weird critter ball thing where they get into like a wheel, and I want to know why. I want to know like how is that integral to their creatures' like physiology.
Right.
They do the smack thing with their mouths. I want to understand that more and how that works.
I understand. Don't put too much.
We don't need too much.
We just want to. Yeah, I understand for A Quiet Place, it's more of that, it's just the noise. They want everything to be shut up. That's the main reason why they attack. Not to mention, you're prey to them. You're constantly the prey.
Yeah, and maybe it's that the Quiet Place has an easier ability to show, don't tell, because they can't tell because they can't talk. You know, and in this movie, I'm confused because I feel like you could reinforce your house. And probably
if you could work all day, shit.
Yeah, like you have all day. It's not like if the creatures were out during the day and you could only work at night. That might make things a little bit more complex because you can't see as well. But I feel like it has a harder time selling me on the idea of these creatures than the other films did.
I absolutely agree. How about you guys? Do you agree of our assessment of Arcadian? Yeah. There's a great concept in there that needs to be fleshed out.
Oh, I definitely agree. I think this has potential, infinite potential. I just didn't see it in this finished product.
So if they're interested in doing a sequel, call me.
Yeah, if it performs well, I think so. For those of you now, it's streaming on Shudder. It had a very limited release in theaters, but you can catch it now on Shudder. It's not a Shudder original, so it may not be there forever. But, if you're looking for it, that's where you can find it. And then once you've seen the movie, come on back. Let us know in the comments section what you thought about it. Maybe you really, really enjoyed it more than we did.
After watching the movie, I actually looked at my fingernails. Yeah, I do have to kind of clean them up a little bit and trim them.
Yeah. So if nothing else, it's a good advertisement for go take a shower.
Right, for hygiene. This tool is all about hygiene in this movie. Right?
Yep. Yeah. So thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Kyle and Nick on Film. You can check out all the links that Nick mentioned. They're down in the description for the video. Yeah. We'll see you guys next time. You can check out my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
My show, you know where it is.